Hi, this is Denise Matthew. I hope you're doing well. I'm here today to talk about a subject that a lot of people ask questions about. And there is some confusion because ultimately human design has a language. I don't know if you want to say it's a problem, but it is a language where we oftentimes have the same word, but it has a lot of different meanings. So what I'm going to differentiate today is the difference between the word projector, a projection field, projected energy, and also just projection in general. So they're all different concepts, but if you actually think about the word, they sound very similar. So what we're going to talk about is the differences. The first one we'll talk about is projector, and that's basically human design type, and it is somebody who has a specific configuration, which means that they do not have a defined sacral, and they also don't have a motor to the throat, but they do have some definition within their chart. Now, if you have no definition at all or no colored in centers in your chart, then that means you are a reflector. But ultimately, I don't want to get into being a projector type too much because I do have a whole video on that. You could check it out if you want more information. But what I wanted to say is that when we say the projection field, when we talk about the projected energy, those types of things, they are not connected to a projector. Now, they can be connected to a projector just like anybody else. And that is when somebody who is a projector type has either a 5 or a 2 in their profile, and then they would be projected on. But if you were a projector type and you have like a 1-3 profile, projection is not part of your theme or something that you have to really think about because that is not part of it. Although projection can be possible in any lines that we have that have a 2 or a 5, and I'll show you that in a minute. So that is something to keep in mind. Only if you are a projector and you do have a profile like a 5-2, a 6-2, or a 5-1, or even a 2-5, anybody who has one of those profiles who is a projector type will definitely have projection within their life. So that's something to keep in mind. The second thing I wanted to talk about is what is projected energy. Projected energy is kind of an interesting theme in that everybody has, generally within us, we all have projected energy. So we could say that projected energy is one of the most common energies in the body graph. Projected energy is pretty much most of the body graph. There are just a few other types of energies. We have the generated energies, and that's any channel that connects to the sacral center is considered a generated energy. We also have manifesting energy or manifesting channels, like we have projected channels, and there's only 4 of them, and the 3420, also the 3536, the 1222, and the 4521. So all of those are manifesting channels because they bring a motor directly to the throat. Most energies that get to the throat don't have the motor, and that is why it's considered a projected channel. So if you look at above the throat, anything that is above the throat, all those channels that are above the throat, they're all considered projected channels, which means that they do have access to the throat, but what they don't have is a motor that is sort of energizing them to be heard in a specific way. We know that manifestors can go out in the world and they can talk about what they want to do. They can initiate. They have the freedom to go to the beat of their own drum. Ultimately, yes, there's always going to be a higher connection that will assist them in their journey, and that's another story altogether. That is completely opposite to projected energy. Projected energy, you could say, has the same type of strategy as a projector, although I don't want to confuse the two together. They are not the same. Any type can have a projected channel, except, of course, a reflector type, because you don't have any channels if you're a reflector type. So ultimately, projected energy means that we need to be acknowledged or even invited into a conversation about the things that we want to talk about. So any of those ideas, beliefs, for instance, the 6217, and that's coming up with opinions for the future, a hypothesis that maybe you want to experiment, is something that would be projected energy coming from the 6217. It is something that you don't have the proof that it is true, but you would like to get some help. And when we talk about being invited or having an acknowledgement, that basically is saying that your aura is primed and is resonating to the people that are going to ask you. So we could think about resonating as being an important ingredient that we need to have activated so we are actually heard in a way where we're valued, and what we have to say is truly going to get some traction. Because if we are just telling people what we think, our opinions, for instance, we'll go back to the 6217. If we're just telling people our opinion, I don't think there's many people in the world who haven't went out, who haven't suggested to people, oh, you should do it this way, or you should do that, or given an opinion, but not been asked for it, and actually been shut down right away because people just don't want to hear that. That is a common practice. But when we are waiting for people to acknowledge us, then that's a different story, where they actually want to hear what you have to say. And it's a big difference with how you received. And ultimately, as soon as you are giving an opinion but not being asked for it, and you get shut down, it's very common for you to not want to talk again. And this can happen with any of the projected channels as well, especially anything that's coming from the identity center to the throat center, all the 31-7, the 1-8, and also the 13-33. They're all projected energy, but they can be especially impactful when you get sort of that negative pushback that somebody doesn't want to hear what you have to say. There's a tremendous amount of projected energies. You can see them all here. I have them all lined up. So that is why it's really important when we have those types of energies, or we are working with those types of energies, that when your aura resonates to another person, that means that they're in step with you or in line with you, and they want to hear what you have to say. The reason why we want to talk about this type of energy, projected energy, or the ideas or whatever we want to express, is to move on to the next step of manifestation. Manifestation is sort of the thing that happens when we get the right people to start helping us move in a specific direction. Because a lot of times the things we want to manifest in life, it does take more than just us. So having the right conditions, the right people, and basically the best conditions possible so that you can be heard, seen, and acknowledged for what you are saying. Now, if you are asked for your opinion, or you are asked for whatever projected energy channel we're talking about, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to be a green light. But what it does mean is that there is going to be more of an openness potentially for people to truly listen to what you're saying. And maybe they don't really like what you have to say, but it's not going to be in a way where they're going to push back and you're going to feel as though you were kind of rejected or something like that. So it is extremely important energy to get it right, because it's going to make you feel acknowledged in a way where you feel respected, as opposed to being shut down and feeling disrespected completely and probably not wanting to share again. Now we get into the word projection and also projection field, and they're very similar. They kind of work hand in hand, and they come with the second and fifth line. And this can be of a profile, but it also can be of any particular gate that you have in your body graph, in either the design or the personality, that you have a second line or you have a fifth line. They both have projection within them, but they both have their own specific flavor of projection. And then we get into the projection field, which is more important for somebody with a fifth line. It could be more specific to somebody who carries that projection, especially with anybody who has a double projection of the fifth line and the second line. But before we get into the fifth line, let's talk about the second line and how the projection is different from the fifth line. So when you have a second line in your profile, like I said, a 6-2 or 2-5 or a 2-4, which I forgot before, but basically that as well, the type of projection that comes here would be considered something that is innocent about us. It is also related to a call that we receive. Now, the second line is always related to a call. The call that we receive is something that somebody says, oh, you would be good at blah, blah, blah. I think you would do well with this type of job, or you would be good at this type of thing, or you should do this because I can see that, I could see you doing that and doing it very successfully. What that means is that somebody is reading the energy, you could say, that your aura is saying to them. The key with the line 2 is that this thing that you are telling people, and I don't mean with words, I'm saying the thing that you are telling people with your aura is that you can do something. Now, most times we don't understand and don't see that part of us, because for the first 3 lines of any profile, or any lines in general, when we go from the 1, 2, 3, those are all considered introspective lines where we're looking inward with those energies. When we're looking inward, we don't know about the interaction that we're having with other people. We only know about ourselves. It is self-exploratory, but it does mean that you're potentially not as connected with how your energy is connecting with other people. Ultimately, what that says is the journey is really about self-discovery, finding about who you are. And what happens with the second line is this is also connected to a talent or a gift. Now, when we talk about talents, there's a lot of places in the body graph that talents lie. The one thing that we will say about this particular talent is it is something that you almost were born naturally good at. It's not something that you've worked on, but you can if you know that you have this natural thing that you're just generally good at. So for instance, somebody goes out, there's about 5 kids go out and they all have a skateboard and everybody tries it out, but one person gets on that skateboard and for some reason they have the balance, they can actually do better than everybody else, and it's their first time doing it. They have a knack, they can do it because there's something that inherently is within them, something that is natural about them that actually is a particular gift or talent. Of course, you're going to find out more what that talent is connected to when you do look at the particular gate that you have, and that's something you could always look at. But if we're going to look at it as a general overall profile, this also says that people are going to call you out in going to say, oh, well, you would be good at this or you would be good at that. And this is going to happen to anybody who has a second line. Now, sometimes somebody will say that to you, oh, you would be really good at this, and you are aware of it. And usually that's because somebody has already told you about it, or you may have just naturally fell into, if you're a piano player, you might have just naturally one day you found a piano and you started playing it and you realize, oh yeah, I'm actually good at this. I like this and I want to continue to do this. So that is what we talk about when we talk about an innocent projection. Now, somebody can call you out and say, you would be a wonderful piano player and I think you should try and pursue that. And as soon as somebody says that to you, you immediately go, no, that's not me. I don't want to do that. Now, that is where you are not accepting the call. And that is always within us to be able to do. We can always say, no, that's not for me, or yes, maybe I'll explore that. The only thing we don't want to get to is if it is a new something, you've never played the piano in your life, somebody says, I think you have the fingers that you could play the piano. And then suddenly you think you can play a concert because you have this particular knack. Well, that is where you're going to potentially stumble, because it doesn't mean that you can play it that particular day. It does mean that you might get advanced quicker than the average person because you have that natural talent. But it also means that practice and those types of things that you need to do to become better at whatever that is are going to be necessary. So that's important to remember as well. Now, when we move to the fifth line, we're talking about an energy where there is more of an awareness of what people expect of you. It's very easy, though, as a fifth line energy, to try to become that thing that people are projecting on you. So we could say with the fifth line, there is a lot of assumptions that you are a specific type of individual. Now, you may know that people expect a certain thing from you. You may feel aligned with that thing that they expect from you, or you may not feel aligned with it. But what you try to do potentially is conform to their expectations, to become that person that they think you are. And that is when we talk about a projection field. And the projection field is where your group of people see you for who you are, or alternatively, they have this expectation of who you are, but it isn't necessarily the true you. A lot of times when you have a fifth line profile, you can feel as though you need to conform, or you can feel pressured to conform. But ultimately, the whole key with this energy is to truly be in the projection field that is correct for you. And when we say that it is a projection field that's correct for you, it means that what people expect from you is what you really want to give them. It means that when you're being yourself authentically, then other people know that about you. They say that, well, that's who they are. They see the true authentic you. You don't have to put on a costume. You don't have to be anyone but who you are. It's easy to pretend sometimes that you are somebody who you're not, and that's because of this projection. So if we use, for instance, the gate 56 as a reference. We could say that the gate 56 line 5, we'll talk about the gate 56 line 5. And if you have that as a profile line, you could have that in your profile as well. The gate 56 is called the storyteller. And it is this ability to tell a story that is going to deliver some sort of a message, a moral. It could be just an experience that you have, or it could be anything like that. But the whole point of the gate 56 is so that we have history. It is a recollection of what happened in the experiences of your life, and you can weave it into a story, and people can be inspired by what you have to say. Ultimately, that's what you want to do when you have the gate 56. You want to inspire people. Now, when we get to the fifth line, this is also the energy of what we call universalization, or how the world sees a storyteller. And that is what we always have to keep in mind with the fifth line, is the expectation is there that this is what it looks like. So if you're a storyteller, what does a storyteller look like? You're the type of person that can get everybody talking. You can stimulate people. You can be there to entertain them, because you are a natural storyteller. Now, is that true? It may not be for you, but that is the impression that people get. So if you try and conform or to become that person that they're all expecting you to become, then that is when you could feel inauthentic. What human design is here to tell us is that to be ourselves is the biggest gift that we can give to ourselves. To authentically allow ourselves to bloom, to expand, to walk our own path is our gift to ourselves. A lot of times there is this feeling of trying to conform to the expectations of others. And as soon as you're doing that, you are almost constricting the true you. And this is where we want to release the bonds of our own making and allow our true self to shine. That's what we want to say. Now, you could be very happy. You could be somebody who loves to tell stories. You could be somebody who loves to entertain people with your words. And if that's the case, then you are in the correct projection field. But if it isn't, then ultimately you may feel as though you're being put in the spot, but you don't necessarily want to do what they say you're doing. So again, this is where we're talking about being in the correct projection field for us. So we could say, in a nutshell, a projection field is a place where you feel secure, where you feel you can be yourself, where you feel people understand you. They expect from you what you're more than willing to give. If that isn't your case, if that isn't your experience, that's when we try to allow the true person to come out into the forefront. Hopefully my explanation will clear some confusion, but please, if there's anything that doesn't make sense, please leave a comment. I always will answer your comments. And if you have any other topics or subjects that you want more clarity on, please let me know. And until next time, take care and bye for now.